This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, DeLaw Schonke.
Hey, good Monday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 15th of April, Tax Day, and as per tradition, today is the day that I actually pay taxes because I'm not going to do it one day earlier. Thank you very much, let alone 2 months earlier. Oh, you kidding me? So we'll get that done later today. Thought about doing it yesterday, but then completely forgot about it, battling the roads. As it turned out, we had cars off the road yesterday with a mixture of snow and slush and sleet and everything else like that, but it wasn't nearly as bad as points north. Hennepin, 8.5 inches, St. Charles, 8.3, Princeton, 8, Sycamore, 8, DeKalb, 7.5, Ladd, where they make the fried chicken, 5 inches, Peoria, 5 inches was the second most this late in the season. They had 5.5 back on April 14 of 1980. So, my goodness, the Palm Sunday snow of 2019. On the program today, Jeff Atkinson, Grain and Feed Association of Illinois. We'll talk about, well, it's been awfully hard to move grain and not many opportunities to move grain this year. We'll talk about those items. The state statistician Mark Schleusiner will be on the program with some recaps of the 2017 Census of Agriculture that was released Thursday, and we'll have Illinois. We'll talk Illinois specific in that one. And it is a Monday. We'll talk grains with Dale Dirkholz, senior analyst at AgriVisor. But first, our weekly update from a Farm Week Crop Watcher. This week's Crop Watcher is Eric Shields down in Jackson County. Well, what's the story down south? How you doing so far this year?
Well, currently we are really wet. We had a couple inches of rain over the weekend here and kind of slowed things down. As far as field work wise, though, it seems to be guys had been getting in the field and plenty of anhydrous going on, a little bit of corn planting and a little bit of soybean planting so far. So other than the rain, we're not too far behind.
So some folks have been able to get in the field so far.
Oh yeah, they're very limited on the soybean planting. I have seen quite a bit of corn planted, but mainly everybody's focusing on dry fertilizer and anhydrous and getting some field work done. But we sure didn't need this rain, I can tell you.
What do you have? Do you have more coming, or what's it look like for this week?
This week's rain forecast is, and I think they're thinking somewhere between 2 and 3 inches the rest of the week.
Oh.
It's just not looking good right now, but that's okay. I guess we'll get started when it does dry up.
Yeah. I noticed last week soil temperatures had certainly made quite an improvement, so things were, at least at one point, were a lot more ready to go in a pretty quick period of time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the soil temperatures warmed up quite a bit. Of course, this morning we had a heavy frost, which was kind of surprising in April like it is. But yeah, I mean, everything was conducive to plant. It was just a matter of finding the dry spots and getting with it. But right now, it just got this little cold snap coming through, and that's kind of killing us.
You had a frost?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a heavy frost this morning. Yep.
Wow. Now, how far are you from the river?
About 30 miles.
Okay.
30 miles due east of Mississippi.
Gotcha. Are guys over there a lot closer to the river? I mean, has it been behaving lately, or is it still quite a concern?
Still quite a concern. Locally, there's a Route 3 that runs down along the river.
Mm-hmm.
The floodgates have been closed, and that has actually been shut off because the river levels were so high. This past weekend they opened that back up, which is a good sign. But internally, the flooding inside, we just can't get the water out right now. The gates are, until the river gets below 20 feet, we can't open our floodgates and get it to come out, and it's too expensive to pump it out.
Oh, so. Sure. Well, hang in there. It sounds like you might have a bit of a slow week, but we've had those before, so we'll talk to you later in the growing season.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Eric Shields is in Jackson County. You can follow his and the progress of all the other Farm Week Crop Watchers in each week's edition of Farm Week. Welcome back. Boy, look at the temperatures. Mount Vernon, 28 overnight. Fairfield and Carbondale, 31. And plenty of other areas in the low to mid-30s as well. Jeff Atkinson joins us over the phone now, Executive Vice President of the Grain and Feed Association of Illinois. Jeff, how are you?
I am doing wonderful today, DeLoss. It's sure a lot nicer day to be around and looking out the windows than, as you mentioned earlier, seeing the cars in the ditch and various things yesterday. We were down here in Springfield, didn't have near the accumulation of snow. It seemed like it puttered along and snowed most of the day, but it didn't really amount to much as far as sticking down. I mean, it stuck, but it seemed like it was melting fairly quickly. The ground was warm enough that it didn't prove to be a big obstacle.
5 inches of snow in Industry yesterday. Is
no,
Mrs. Atkinson from there?
Kind of back in my home territory, back west central Illinois, where I grew up. So I hadn't really looked to see what the totals were around the state, but it's not the first time it's snowed in April, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh! I had a Facebook post that I saw that came up that I did this a year ago. I was pumping gas and I took a picture. Said, in the wintertime you're always supposed to keep the gas gauge more than half. And then I said, well, wait a minute, but why in the world is this still winter? So I guess we've been through this before. It just seems a little different this go around, as bad as it was last fall and all the way through the winter. Just haven't got a whole lot of things done yet.
Yeah, somebody said yesterday, this is old man winter's not playing very nice right now.
Boy, sure isn't. Well, this year seems a little different as well. I think for you, it just there haven't been any pricing opportunities. It's been awfully hard to move grain. Then you got river levels, and you got to deal with China. So I assume that there are a lot of elevators that are holding more capacity now than they would normally be doing right around tax day.
Well, that's very true, DeLoss. And as we look into the industry in general, we try to kind of assess where things are at. And we are fortunate in respect that around here, we do have a lot of processing market and a lot of ethanol and the Decatur area. Those are all big animals that need to be fed, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But we do also rely, of course, quite extensively on the export markets, and it doesn't seem like there has been as much movement there as what there normally would be. But we all know the reasons for that, just with the export demand being down and the opportunities that just haven't been there like they might be some years. And in the grain industry, of course, kind of the way very basic kind of the way some people look at things is it's one of those where you say, okay, we've got this much grain in storage now at fall. We expect to get this much more during the course of the rest of the year from producers. So how many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of bushels do we need to move a week, a month, in order to be able to be ready for the next harvest? And there's a lot of things that can throw a wrench in that, and obviously this market conditions right now are kind of throwing a wrench in that, along with some of the high water. So that's certainly something that we're going to be continuing to look at and try to figure out, make sure we can make the logistics work so that we're ready to handle the capacity for this fall.
Yeah, you guys did a grain export tour recently. Went down to New Orleans and just saw how much that could be moved so quickly. We just need the opportunities to be able to move so much so quickly.
Boy, that's right. It was a fascinating tour. The first time we've done took some of our members down there to the Convent, Louisiana, went to the Zeno grain handling facility, and while the weather didn't cooperate with us down there either, it was raining, so we couldn't see some of the things that would normally get to see. But that facility, they bring in 2 million bushels a day of corn. They export, or they put on a ship about 2 million bushels a day. Wow. So that's just phenomenal. They can unload a barge in about 45 minutes, and it's just phenomenal, the capacity of handling they have. There again, the river level is very high down there, so it's kind of treacherous. It's been very foggy down there. When it's foggy, they can't really be moving out on the river either. So there were a lot of things that were maybe not as that are kind of fighting against the weather down there as well, and just fascinating to see how the capacity that's there, and that was just one facility, and there's, of course, as you know, a number of facilities there along that stretch of the river in the Convent and Reserve area that just handle the millions of bushels that that go down the river and get exported on a daily basis. It's just amazing, and I'm sure encourage anybody that has a chance to do something like that to take advantage of it, to see the connection between the state of Illinois through the river system down to that part of the country, to the rest of the world, really.
So there was still plenty going on while you were down there. They weren't just sitting around. They were still being able to move grain, but it just seems like there just hasn't been enough export opportunities of late.
Well, that's right. I mean, they're still keeping busy. Matter of fact, I think they, probably because of the weather, they haven't been as busy as they normally would. Here again, the river very high down there, flowing very fast. I think they said the current was moving at roughly about 15 miles an hour, which on a river system that's extremely fast, extremely swift. Creates a lot of hazards that are there. And matter of fact, they'd indicated that previous week a towboat operator had kind of gotten sideways with an anchor line for one of the ships, and the boat ended up flipping, and both of the individuals lost their lives, which is very tragic.
Wow.
There is a lot of current there and a lot of things moving, but they were keeping busy. There wasn't any doubt of that. So anytime you're bringing in 2 million bushels a day and exporting 2 million bushels a day, that's a lot of commodity to move.
That's a lot of commodity, certainly is. Hang on the line. We're up against the break here. We'll continue our discussion. Jeff Adkisson, our regular conversation, the Grain and Feed Association of Illinois. We'll have more to come on a Monday, RFD Today.
With this week's edition of Farm Week, the early word, here's DeLaw Schonke.
More Illinois farmers, nearly 72%, responded to USDA's latest ag census than any other state. Find out what farmers reported in the latest edition of Farm Week. Colleen Weir knows how to make popcorn near perfection. Read about her business, Creekstone Kettle Works, and the specialty popcorn flavors she's created in this week's Farm Week. #1 ag publication in Illinois, arriving soon in your mailbox.
No other farm weekly in Illinois has as many people on the ground in Illinois covering Illinois agriculture for you, with the depth on key issues to help keep you profitable. And don't forget, you can get daily or even more frequent updates online anytime at farmweeknow.com.
RFD Radio Network's Rita Frazier connects rural routes for you. Rita delivers passion and reliable information to listeners on the RFD Radio Network. Her radio career spans close to 3 decades. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up on a small farm. My job today allows me to connect with people from all walks of life and experience opportunity every day. I get to talk about what I love, farming.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
I'm Trooper Teal at the Illinois State Police. As we enter spring planting season in Illinois, it is imperative to eliminate distractions in your vehicle and pay attention to the farm equipment on the roadway. At 55 miles per hour, it takes only 5 seconds to close the gap the length of a football field between you and a tractor moving 5 miles per hour. Distracted Driving Awareness Month in April is a united effort to recognize and eliminate preventable deaths from distracted driving. Join us to help save lives.
A message from the Illinois Farm Bureau and the Illinois State Police.
I was visiting my 75-year-old aunt the other day when her phone rang.
Hello? It's you again.
She seemed nervous.
Well, I don't think I need any more life insurance.
The caller was doing a great job keeping my aunt on the line.
Okay, so you need my credit card number?
My aunt went to get her purse, so I decided that I would ask a few questions. Well, as soon as I introduced myself, the caller hung up.
McGruff, the crime dog here. Recognizing the signs of fraud can be difficult for older people. Often they're very trusting and consider it impolite to hang up. The National Crime Prevention Council wants to educate seniors so that these scams can be reported to local law enforcement agencies.
Financial fraud can include identity theft, fake check and wire transfer scams, investment and credit card fraud, and online charitable solicitations. Unfortunately, only 1 in 5 of these crimes are reported. To learn more, go to ncpc.org/seniors. That's ncpc.org/seniors. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Department of Justice.
Welcome back to RFD Today on a Monday. I'm DeLawes Yawkey. And Jeff Atkinson is joining us from Grain and Feed Association of Illinois. We didn't talk about this before, Jeff, but I'm just curious. Last week I had a gentleman talking about blockchain. Now, and blockchain is certainly a lot more traceability, and we can go into you can go into a grocery store, and eventually there'll be QR codes that'll take you right back to the farm where that came from. Do you talk much about blockchain from your standpoint? I mean, just like before, you're talking about all these bushels of grain that are being moved. Now, I don't know how you keep track of that sort of thing, but is there a place for it in your line of work?
I believe there is a place for the blockchain technology, and I think as it develops, we'll kind of, so to speak, really figure out how we fit in. We have had some different sessions on the blockchain technology, and really a lot of that is just kind of starting from the very beginning of what is it and how does it work. And we've got a group we call our developing professionals. That's basically people that are new or newer to the industry, and we've had a couple of presentations to that group. I know we've had a presentation at our convention and some other programs we've had over the years on blockchain technology. But yeah, I think there's a real place for it. I think one of the things that is kind of being looked at now really has to do with how barges and some things like that, how they're bought and sold, and how the paperwork flows. My understanding now is it's very cumbersome, very costly as far as the amount of FedEx, the documents that are sent, or sent by a FedEx or something like that to get them into the proper hands in the most expedient time possible. You move to this blockchain technology, of course, then you can change how that is all done, and things can documents and can be moved and verified very quickly, very rapidly, and certainly would expedite some of the process. But yeah, how in a commodity world, how exactly does blockchain work? And I guess that'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out when we mix and mingle crops from various farmers. It's a little bit of a stretch for me to understand how that be able to trace it to a specific farm, but maybe they can trace it to a specific geographic area, and that will be good enough. I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I wonder if you could trace it to an elevator or certainly an area, how you go to the farm when you've got that much grain. I don't know how you would do that, but someone might be able to figure that out in a few years.
Well, I'm sure they probably will, and yeah, when you take it from a country elevator to a terminal elevator, and it's mixed and mingled from various, several country elevators, in the commodity business, it's going to be real interesting to see how that works.
Given the difficulty to move grain this year so far, these things take a lot of planning and a lot of discussion amongst their boards, I'm sure, but has it had any impact from some of your members you've been talking about, just thinking about more storage? Do we need to do another project still this year?
It sure seems like there's still a lot of new bins going up and new construction. It's one of those where I think oftentimes, we have members who will maybe put it out in a temporary storage or maybe even emergency storage situation for a year or two to kind of see where the trends are going, where yields are headed, and then get to that point where they say, wow, we really need to add some more permanent storage at our location so that we can handle more efficiently and more effectively what the farmers are bringing to us. So yeah, there are projects going up around the state. Hear that from some of our millwrights and bin builders and things like that there's things still going up, but it's year after year. I think whether it's a matter of building additional space or in some situations, those steel bins will only last so long. Those concrete tanks will only last so long, and comes that point in time where they do have to be replaced, and oftentimes replace it with something much bigger and much more efficient.
They might be saying, well, we talked about putting solar there, but if we put solar there, we can't put another bin there.
exactly right. Yeah, you don't, and if you do put solar in, you want to make sure it's on the correct side of the bin, not the dark side.
Yeah, that a lot of these, you're limited space in just the land that you own, or even where you are in town. So there's a lot to take in there.
And I think on the solar, as you know, on the solar as well, there are certain locations it'll work and certain ones that it won't. It has to be, near a substation and things of that nature. I know we've had a number of our members who have taken a look at the solar, but it for some it's worked economically, others it really hasn't. And so I think a lot of it relies on the tax incentives and the subsidies that are there to put in solar, and that just depends on a company's tax situation on whether that makes sense or doesn't. And so we've had some say it just financially just doesn't make sense for them to do it. Might be a great idea, but it's just not something that makes financial sense to them.
Right. Yeah, the different type of sustainability. You're talking solar, you're talking about sustainability. Well, there's another sustainability variable in there as well that it certainly has, in many cases, the final say. So, hey, we're already out of time, Jeff. Thanks so much for coming on with us, and I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Always a pleasure, DeLoss. You have a great week.
You too. Jeff Adkisson, Grain and Feed Association of Illinois. You can learn more about gfai.org. And, boy, we're talking about snowfall amounts yesterday. It won't be long. GFAI will have some golf tournaments, which raises money for scholarships and other charitable contributions during the year. That sounds more like talking about as opposed to talking about snowfall amounts on Palm Sunday. Stay tuned. It's RFD Today.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Kay Shipman connects rural routes for you. For 3 decades, Kay has delivered important news. She covers everything from legislative issues to the latest in soil and water conservation. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I love covering so many aspects of agriculture and providing readers with the facts they need to make better decisions. I also get to work with farmers and meet new people along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com and Farm Week keep you connected.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
Country Financial has been protecting farms like yours for over 90 years, and while our values remain the same, our technology has advanced alongside you. Our free Country Crop mobile app lets you conveniently view policy documents and file or track a claim. And we've made sure our tools work with your precision ag technology, allowing you to easily upload your planting and harvesting data. Learn more at countrycrop.com. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. This entity is an equal opportunity provider.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/Farm Bureau.
As you prepare for planting season, remember your neighbors. Whether you're an applicator, grower, or beekeeper, use FieldWatch to register your farm and monitor for sensitive sites around you. FieldWatch is a free, easy-to-use online mapping tool. Consulting FieldWatch is now a requirement for the over-the-top use dicamba products. Communicating with your neighbors will help you protect your farm and the environment. Don't wait. Go online to fieldwatch.com. Growing agriculture, we grow best together.
All Ag.
All Illinois.
All Now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All Ag, All Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food. Welcome back to RFD Today on a Monday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Now we'll go back down over the phones to Springfield again, and our state statistician Mark Schleusener is on the phone. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great today, DeLoss. How about yourself?
Well, hey, my beloved Royals swept the Indians over the weekend, so I'm happy as a clam, quite frankly. So
glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
Got that going on. They play the White Sox 18, 19 games a year, and not one of those games is on a weekend in Chicago. Not one. I don't understand that sort of thing. So I'd like to go up, with my, I think there are about 10 downstate White Sox fans. We could all get together and go up and see a game, but probably not going to happen this year. Now, you've been, I'm sure, going through a whole lot of information. The 2017 Census of Agriculture was released Thursday. And what do you know? Illinois was the top responding state in the entire country. How about that?
Yeah, that was really good to see, and a lot of that is thanks to the partners that we dealt with, including the Farm Bureau and yourself, DeLoss. You guys were very helpful about encouraging producers to do this important project. We also had help from the Illinois Department of Ag, other parts of the USDA, like the Farm Service Agency, and the commodity groups, too, the Corn Growers and the Illinois Soybean Association.
Wow, great turnout, more than 70%, if I remember right.
78% in Illinois, and we led the nation.
Wow, that's fantastic. There are a couple things on there I felt, well, things like 96% of all farms are still family-owned. I know that was for the national report. But there were just a couple of things in there that, I think that went away from the stereotypes or the assumptions, still talking about family farms. We're still talking in many cases about a lot of small farms, not just a bunch of old big farms that are, being factory farmed, if you will. The perception and the reality, I think, are two different things.
That's a good point. And the Census of Agriculture, which is a public resource available to anyone who wants to use it for free, it tells a lot about those small farms. I believe you're talking about the group of farms that are in the 1 to 9 acres in Illinois. Boy, is that right?
That was a huge increase, wasn't it?
It was. There are nearly 8,000 farms in that group. Now, there's 72,000 farms altogether in Illinois, so 8,000 of them, or 11%, in that 1 to 9 acres. And many of those very small farms are what might be called a hobby farm or a farmette. That is, they're not generating enough revenue to raise a family. But there's more to them than that. That whole group of the 1 to 9 acre farms account for $140 million in sales, $140 million. The biggest chunk of that is coming from the hog industry, $67 million. So you think about maybe a place with 1 or 2 hog barns that may be raising several tens of thousands of hogs in a year. They don't need a big footprint of land. They don't need a lot of land to have those 2 hog barns and produce a lot of meat for all of us, and maybe hiring a few people and purchasing a lot of feed, medical care, etc. The second biggest group in that 1 to 9 acres is the nursery greenhouse group. And Illinois has a very large nursery greenhouse industry. There's $34 million in sales from nurseries and greenhouses under 10 acres. Think about this. A place that has, let's say, 2 or 3 acres under glass, that is a very busy place.
That's big, yeah.
There are a number of people working there to unload a truck with supplies and then water the plants and make those hanging baskets that we all buy and maybe tend some rose bushes or what have you. And they're buying fertilizer and seed, and that's a busy place. That's a big business if it's got several acres under glass. $34 million in sales, nursery greenhouse industry under 10 acres.
I didn't even think about hog barns as possibly being 1 to 9 acres. It didn't even come to mind. Growing up on a family diversified farm where the hogs were in that part of the headquarters. But yeah, if especially it could be somewhere away from town, and it may just take occupy a few acres. But we bring in the grain and we bring in the pigs, so that's how that works in a lot of cases now.
Yeah, the age of specialization has hit agriculture, and as you talk about, if you go back 25, 30 years, pretty much every farm had crops and livestock, and nowadays, most of them, not all, are focused on one thing or two things, and hog production would be one where they're not growing crops in addition to raising those pigs.
Crop sales and livestock sales, just as a percentage, there wasn't too much of a difference over the last 5 years, was there?
It's been very steady in Illinois. It's about 81% crops in 2017, and that's been steady all the way back to 1997. Grains and oilseeds added together. That's our corn and soybeans. That's the two biggest things happening in Illinois agriculture. They are 78% of all the sales in Illinois. Corn, the grains and oilseeds all added together. And after that comes the pork industry, and then cattle, and then nursery greenhouse industry would be the fourth biggest if you combine corn and soybeans together.
By the way, I saw this in 12. I don't remember if I saw it in 17 or not. The folks that were full-time farmers was about half of the total. Like you mentioned, some 1 to 9 acre farms or smaller farms where some people are still farming, but that may not be their primary job. Was that in the 17 report as well?
It is, and I didn't check it out. I'll try to dig it up in a little bit.
Yeah.
And Illinois, it still has lots of rural areas, but it's perhaps less rural than some of the other big farm states. And so there are opportunities for someone to have a job in town or driving a truck or something like that so that people can have a job and then maybe have a significant farming enterprise as well as that job.
Right. Well, hang on the line. I wanted to ask you about that. I didn't remember seeing that in the 17 report, but I was surprised to see that in 2012. But hold on the line. We have a commercial coming up here. One of the things we'll talk about with Mark is maybe even the difference between 2012 census would have been during a much better farm economy than the 2017 census, and if there were any differences reflected between the two. Mark Sleusner is our state statistician on a Monday, RFD today.
Hi, this is Sabrina Hardy, RFD Business Manager. I want to thank you for listening to the RFD Radio Network, the #1 ag radio network in Illinois. Did you know RFD Radio Network's programming is being broadcast by Rita Frazier and DeLosh Yankee with a combined 50 years of broadcasting experience? Join us daily. If you have any questions, email me at chardy@ilfb.org.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local County Farm Bureau for your discount code number.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Still a little bit higher for corn and soybeans, up a penny for corn, up 2 cents for beans. We're down 2 to 3 for wheat. May corn up 1.5, 362.5. July up 1.5, 371. December up 1, 390. May soybeans up 2.5, 897 3/4. In the early going, we were up a nickel for soybeans. July right now up 2.5, 911 1/4. November up 2 1/4, 930. Soy meal up $1.80. Soybean oil down 7 cents. May wheat down 3. 461.5. July down 3.5, 465. May hogs up 2, 89.62. June down 55, 97.95. June cattle unchanged, 121.45. DeLoss Yankee, RFD Radio Network. Welcome back to RFD today on a Monday. We're visiting with Mark Sleusner, state statistician. The 2017 USDA Census of Agriculture was released Thursday, which you can find nass.usda.gov, National Ag Statistics Service. Did you notice necessarily, could you tell from any of the numbers, well, 2012 was certainly a different time than 2017 was. One was, boom time, and the latest one certainly wasn't. So did anything jump off the page where you could look back and say, well, that's when we took the survey information?
A couple of things that I saw when I dug into it. I remember 2012 was that big drought that was not just Illinois, but around the Midwest. So in 2012, the Illinois average corn yield was 105 bushels per acre, and in 2017 it was 201, practically twice as big. For soybeans, it was 43 bushels back in 2012 and 58 in 2017. But you know what? If you add up all the production of crops and livestock in those 2 years, it was about the same because the price changed so much in 2012. People use that phrase, beans in the teens, and some people sold corn for $6. I did not find the average prices, but overall, in spite of the big change in production, the total value of ag products sold is about the same at $17 billion. The biggest difference in those 2 years, other than the yield and price, the next thing that comes in line, it's crop insurance. And, pretty much every crop farm in Illinois could have filed a crop insurance claim in 2012. And the larger farms were getting very large checks in the six-figure number. So the difference in crop insurance in 2012, where lots and lots of people were getting a payment, and then in 2017 was much smaller, it's about $800 million.
So the difference between revenue protection and really needing that crop insurance to perform for you?
I think 2012, it was an absolute necessity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
And it got paid out in large amounts. Almost all our corn and soybeans in Illinois are insured with one type of policy or another, and there are numerous choices there. And producers are making choices on depending on their individual situation.
Right. Well, we've talked about many times by having crop insurance there, we didn't need to go back to the feds and ask for any other help because it was already available there. Expenses in 2017, it was interesting, what made the top of that list.
Yeah, the biggest one is cash rent. If you add it all together, all the expenses across all the farms, cash rent in Illinois is the number one thing. It's about $2 billion in expenses. After that comes seed and then fertilizer. Those are also approaching $2 billion. Chemicals, that's the crop protectants, that comes in fourth. And then feed at $1 billion is number 5 on that list.
That's quite a list. I believe interest was either 8th or 9th on that list.
Relatively small. And when we compare across the two, there's a number of categories where 2012 was a good deal more expensive. Now, fertilizer was $2.4 billion 5 years in 2012 and on $1.8 billion in 2017. So fertilizer was cheaper in 2017. Seed was a little bit more in 2017. Feed for the livestock was down a little bit when you compare the two census years.
That's interesting because all you're looking at is dollar amounts. It's not necessarily quantity, but you certainly would say something about the price levels 1 year to the next, because the first thought is, well, we didn't buy as much fertilizer, or we didn't, we may not have, but surely that's more about a price function than a quantity function.
I think that's right, Los. There's a price component, but also an amount or a quantity component, and the price, I think, was the driving factor here.
By the way, in the national report, it showed the number of beginning farmers, and the average age of a beginning farmer was 10 years or less in the business, and the average age was still 46, which I found interesting.
Yes, and in Illinois, we've got 11,000 young producers. And let me make a point here that the census of agriculture not only counts the crops and the livestock, it counts the people that are producing those things. So we had the 72,000 farms, but there's 116,000 producers. Think about the type of farm where there's a person of my age, a little bit past middle age, I guess, but there's a younger person on that farm trying to break into the business. And if someone wanted to start a corn and soybean farm on their own, they'd have to get a whopping big loan. It's just not really very feasible. Mm-hmm. But what is feasible is slowly working your way into a larger operation and using that sweat equity. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised a lot of those people are very busy, and they may have a second job, maybe in an office or maybe driving a truck or something like that. But 11,000 young producers out of our 116,000 total producers, 12,000 veterans in Illinois. A little bit more than 10% of the people that are running our farms. Now,
veteran could even still be, could be Vietnam. I mean, veteran, it doesn't break down specifically. I mean, that could be someone who's 70 who served, a while ago.
That's right. And we did have the average age for all the veterans, and it struck me when I did a little bit of math that it was probably the Vietnam era that had most of them. Uh-huh. But yeah, someone may have come back from Iraq or Afghanistan not too long ago and then switched into farming. There are a number of USDA programs designed to help that happen. We're trying to make sure our veterans have a nice landing spot, whether it's in agriculture or maybe in other parts of our country. Let's make sure they've got a way to earn a living after protecting us.
Sure. And then in Illinois, did you see much difference in women involved, especially as decision makers or just involved for that matter?
We've got 33,000 women producers out of our 116,000, and we did a couple things differently, trying harder to find them. Think about, let's say, the stereotypical farm where somebody who's my age, I'm 58, is the primary decision maker on that farm, and they may be driving the planter and the combine. But it's entirely possible there's someone else, perhaps the farm wife, who is doing the books. Mm-hmm. And having knowledge of that expense information and how things are going in terms of cash flow basis is very important for any business to be run well. And that needs to be counted. And a person who is doing that type of work is counted as a producer in the Census of Agriculture. And also think about there can be a 3-generation farm out there where, let's call it grandfather, father, and son or daughter are all working together on the same acres. And there's some sort of a transition plan to get the older folks out of the business, the younger folks into the business. But that's a complicated thing, and the younger people are working at it, building sweat equity and bringing their expertise to the farm.
All right. And again, this is all public information. People can just find it online.
That's right. It's a public resource that can be used by anyone. Think about the university professors. Let's say that Farm Doc group. They may be using it to do their economic projections. And state and federal lawmakers are using it because they may be considering legislation that will impact farms in a positive or a negative way, and they want to know how many farms will be impacted. People talk about infrastructure in rural areas, and maybe we need to put some money into Internet access. 77% of Illinois farms had Internet access. Now, some of them maybe are choosing not to have Internet access, but some of them maybe just have a difficult time getting any kind of a realistic connection. And there's also public and private investments. So if someone's working on infrastructure like the Internet capabilities, or maybe in the private industry world, someone's wanting to build a new grain elevator or improve an existing one, the Census of Agriculture will be an excellent resource for them to make an informed business decision.
Thanks so much, Mark. Good to visit with you. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, DeLoss.
Mark Schleusiner, more to come, RFD today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Illinois direct hog market last week stayed steady to firm pretty much throughout the week from $46 to $56 a hundredweight. Sow market held pretty firm all week as well. Friday $1 higher, 36 to 46 for lightweights, 44 to 50 for heavyweights. Light boars with a top of 30 was up $2 a hundredweight from the week before. Thursday special feeder sale in Fairview. The Fairview Sale Barn brought in more than 2,200 head, including 7 full pod loads. Had one load lot of 713 pounders, average 162 and a quarter. Another pod load averaged 729 pounds, brought 158. 732-pound pod load, 157 and a quarter. 788 brought 152 and a quarter, and 817 brought 147.75. This is the RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And you know, that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
Welcome back to RFD Today on a Monday. Hey, Dale, are you looking to buy or sell? You should check out the latest Farm Week classified advertisements. Or to place an ad, 800-573-6120 or submit online at farmweeknow.com. 800-573-6120. Dale Dirkholz, Senior Analyst at AgriVisor, is in studio. Here we are on Tax Day. Happy Tax Day to you, sir.
Whoopee.
Now, I'm thinking about where we were a year ago around Memorial Day. That was around the time that the prices started to go down. We were at 10.5 on the futures for soybeans. We were more than 4. We were like 4.25, I think, for corn, and that's when it started sliding.
We're about $4, yeah.
That's only 6 weeks or so between here and there. When can we see the? Have they scheduled the spring rally yet? Is that any time around the corner?
That's what a lot of people are asking. Actually, you know, and amid the fact that we really didn't do much last week, there were a few little ingredients, and you know, it wouldn't take necessarily a whole lot more strength than what we've had here today so far off the highs, both corn and beans, to really turn the minor trends up. You know, and I go back, and there's people out there that have listened know that I use a lot of timing stuff in what I do, and although you can't time anything to the day, to the week necessarily, you know, we're now starting to push towards the latter part of that window for the lows to occur in corn and beans, still looking purely at timing indicators. So I think we're getting ready to shift the market this morning. There wasn't a lot of news, but the one thing that people were talking about was that, you know, finally it's the middle of April and not too many wheels are turning out there, and, you know, starting to see a little bit of this timing planting starting to build into the mix right now. Even if we started to move, though, is there so much farmer selling that needs to be done that would restrict moves this kind of year? This go around in particular. Yeah, it could have a little bit of a capping impact on the market itself. I won't say that it won't. More of that you'd probably see in the basis, but I think the basis, you know, in general is probably already wide enough here because of the issues we've had with transportation to rivers and everything else. That we probably don't see the basis widen out. It may just not really improve much here over the next few weeks, but actually the better basis levels might come, you know, into May or early June. There'd be a short window there when transportation situation clears up and improves a little bit. Might be strong into then, but after that, then we have to start to deal with the repercussions of the carryovers we're going to have. So hopefully at some point we find some kind of movement to the plus side. We stay patient on corn then? I think in the short term, yeah, you do. You know, things drug out a little bit more than I thought, but, you know, I don't think this is a panic time, unless you're trying to get a crop in the ground. Then you're probably getting a little bit more nervous. But as long as this weather situation doesn't get a whole lot better, you know, it's going to start to filter into the market and be a little supportive. And, you know, even yesterday, I don't like the National Weather Service weekend weather forecast because they have a tendency to be computer-driven, no human interaction. But, you know, even the 8 to 14 day was talking about above normal moisture for a lot of the Midwest, starting somewhere around central Illinois and going west. And, you know, that just says we aren't going to plant a lot. The other thing to think about at this point, Thursday, we'll have new monthly weather outlooks for the National Weather Service.
Well, I was at a track meet Saturday, by the way. I was at a track meet. I was at an outdoor track meet for about 4 hours on Saturday. And then Sunday did what Sunday did. And then Tuesday is going to be 75. And it's going to rain for the rest of the week. So this is just all kinds of messed up, what we're going through right now.
Yeah.
But it's also middle April. We've been messed up in middle April before.
Hey. You talk about you were at a track meet. I was at a track meet once somewhere around the 10th day of May down at Clinton, Illinois. I had T-shirt, shirt, wool sweater, winter coat, and a blanket over top, and I'm still cold.
We don't want to talk about that for this May. No, we can't be going there.
I tell you, spring weather and track meets don't always necessarily go together.
No, they certainly don't, especially depending on which way the wind is blowing here. So a little more than a minute left here. We asked about corn. What about for soybeans? Did we just...
It's really pretty much the same story, but I think, in one sense, maybe corn has to lead us out of the hole at this particular juncture in time. Another thing, really impacting both, and it's this ongoing story that never seems to end, is what's going on with China, et cetera, so you're always looking for news and views on that, and from what I picked up when I was gone at the end of last week and even over the weekend, it sounds like we may be, really done. Just a matter if we don't know any kind of details nor how anybody's going to respond to those details. But it does sound like something's been done, or it's just somebody's got a dot and I across the T.
There was a talk late last week about breakthrough on certain measures.
Yeah, enforcement. They're really down into the enforcement measures and stuff like that. It sounds like how they kind of police this whole thing. So. We'll see. That's just an evolving story that just never seems to go away this year.
They've been breaking UN rules with their subsidies for 10 years. Just, are they going to all of a sudden just turn around and start playing ball? I feel like that's one of the questions it'll take a long time to be answered regardless of what the agreement's are.
They've estimated, the people in the U.S. Trade Office estimated it was $100 billion over 10 years.
Billion, right?
Billion.
In 10 years. That's a lot of payments. My goodness. Dale Dirkholz, Senior Analyst at AgriVisor. I'm DeLoss Yankee saying watch your ends. We'll be back in studio again tomorrow.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.